Meghan says no when asked to provide evidence of royal racism against Archie. Hello, friends. Welcome to breaking royal news about the notorious hypocritical couple Harry and Meghan Markle on our Royal Trust channel. During an interview with Oprah, Meghan Markle disclosed that an individual, likely from the royal family, raised concerns about the potential skin tone of her baby. However, she chose not to reveal the identity of this person, citing the potential harm it could cause. This situation elicits contrasting viewpoints about Meghan. On one side, there's a negative response. If her allegation holds true, it constitutes an appalling and unjustifiable racist remark. Considering that the public's finances contribute to the opulent lifestyle of the royal family, there's a legitimate expectation to identify the person responsible. By making this claim, casts suspicion over the entire royal family and tarnishes their collective reputation. Investigative journalists will undoubtedly strive to verify and expose the person behind the comments. If Meghan and Harry intend to level such an accusation, they bear a responsibility to specify the individual involved among the royal family members. This is crucial not only to protect those who were not part of any racist discourse, but could suffer from tabloid-fueled assumptions about their involvement. It's equally vital for the public to be informed. Even if it implicates the Queen or her direct heir, the truth should prevail in the interest of the public. In reality, Harry and Meghan are capitalizing on the fallacy that the absence of evidence implies evidence of absence in this scenario. They point out that certain influential figures, though unnamed, made a racist comment without evoking a response from other family members. This insinuation is then used to suggest tacit support for such views. The strategy is clever. Introduce a controversial incident or statement and attribute it to a select few candidates. Keep the actual speaker undisclosed, leaving room for speculation. Express disappointment at the lack of reaction. This subtly implies that others might share the same prejudiced sentiments due to their apparent indifference or failure to denounce the statement. Yet numerous scenarios could have occurred beyond Meghan's hearing range. Someone might have privately reprimanded the person in question, or the comment might have been misconstrued as racist when it wasn't intended as such. The potency of such a bombshell revelation lies in its ambiguity. The truth remains elusive, but the insinuation still inflicts harm. When an individual invites questions with an "ask me anything" statement, but then avoids responding, I perceive it as a falsehood. The purpose of such a declaration seems contradictory if it essentially implies that while inquiries are allowed, answers won't be provided. It's akin to suggesting that certain questions should be avoided unless you're ready to answer them. Regarding the suggestion that the event was scripted, it's my personal interpretation of the situation. The interaction lacked any significant resistance, creating an excessively friendly atmosphere. There was even a guiding prompt toward a sensitive racial question. The resemblance to Hannity's interview style with Trump is evident. My perspective might not be accurate, yet it remains genuine. However, when Meghan claims that nothing is off-limits but subsequently evades specific inquiries, it renders the "nothing is off-limits" assertion deceptive. She was well aware from the start that she wouldn't address questions about names concerning her main accusation. The statement, "it seems," or Oprah's assertion indicates that people use "it seems" rather than attributing it directly to Harry. This provides Harry the opportunity to deny any explicit confirmation regarding the person behind the racist remark. Nevertheless, he appears unfazed about implicating the entire royal family in this matter. Consider if the individual making the comment was Prince Philip, who already has a Nazi history and potential dementia. This situation contrasts significantly with the scenario involving Harry's brother or father, who is in line for the throne. By withholding the person's name, Charles and William are just as implicated as anyone else. If Harry genuinely aimed to shield the royal family from racist accusations, he wouldn't have revealed this detail. Thus, his actions suggest he had no qualms about implicating even those not involved in the alleged conversation. I hold no animosity towards them. It might be challenging for you to grasp that someone can be critical without harboring personal hatred. As I mentioned, their choice to lead their own life in Los Angeles away from royalties is entirely acceptable. My perspective going into the interview was unbiased since I avoid tabloid sources. My point is that their allegations were artfully planned and integrated into the interview script. The absence of challenging questions from Oprah allowed them to play the victim role without opposition. The ones who put forth the affirmative assertion bear the responsibility to provide evidence. Their claim rests on thin grounds, relying solely on their portrayal as victims. The key issue is that their vague allegation makes it nearly impossible for anyone to challenge them for proof, as it wasn't directed specifically at any individual. It's analogous to stating that doping exists in athletics. How should clean athletes react to this? They cannot refute or contest it since it wasn't aimed at them directly, yet the implicit suggestion affects them. This type of accusation is particularly cunning for this reason. A candid source mentioned, "Considering the royal family's history with Diana, I'm not inclined to empathize with them. However, I wouldn't form a judgment solely based on this one-sided interview." The whole thing appeared meticulously orchestrated, and Oprah allowed them to avoid accountability, even though they initially claimed no boundaries. She failed to press them when they evaded questions. Meghan adeptly played the role of the victim, making cryptic yet highly damaging claims about a conversation she wasn't even present for. These allegations are impossible to refute by design. Meanwhile, Harry, who was present, opted for silence. It seems likely they also distorted the financial aspect. Harry's evident concern about security costs implies a willingness to acquire funds. Regardless, their decision to relocate to Los Angeles, with a murder rate significantly higher than the UK, seems unwise if security is a primary concern. However, let's entertain the idea that the royal family is indeed harboring racist sentiments. If this were true, some might welcome it. Advocating for the preservation of one's ethnic group and opposing miscegenation and perceived threats to their identity could be viewed as ethnocentrism. Nonetheless, the provided text then delves into controversial and offensive statements that I won't replicate. Harry's actions are disgraceful, sending a negative message to young Europeans that endorsing the decline of their own heritage is a form of progress. I'm relieved that certain members of the royal family possess the courage to stand up against the racially biased and anti-white woke movement. This crowd seems to desire a future where Europeans appear entirely black and possess nigritic features. By branding dissenters as racist, these individuals attempt to coerce whites into accepting their own extinction in their historical homelands. No, I find satisfaction in the royals distancing themselves from Harry and Meghan. Participation in miscegenation and contributing to the erasure of indigenous European genetics should not be tolerated within a royal family. Why must Europeans face extinction in their own ancestral lands, while Africans, Asians, South Asians, Middle Eastern individuals, and those from the Pacific remain untouched? This discrepancy is unacceptable. It is unreasonable for European royal families to transform into a melting pot of races, losing the true European essence. On a more positive note, a considerable number of people have expressed empathy for Meghan's decision to accuse the royal family of racism. One person stated, "The concept of having an inherent right to know when it comes to the royal family is detrimental, and this perspective contributes to the overall problematic nature of the situation." To begin with, multiple sources have pointed out that the royal family isn't funded by taxpayer money. This actually undermines your argument, which focused on the financial obligations of the royals. But since there's no public financial support, you need a stronger rationale for why the public should have a right to this information if money isn't the factor. Essentially, there are two reasons. 1. Racism stands out as a unique issue when it comes to public condemnation. 2. The royal family doesn't quite fit the mold of a regular family or even standard public figures, given that public figures aren't typically subject to an entire industry centered around their lives. There's a distinct genre of tabloids dedicated solely to royal matters, and your argument that not providing specifics would only fuel this industry is somewhat disingenuous. There's already an overwhelming amount of scrutiny coming from an industry entirely focused on dissecting every aspect of their lives. What I'm trying to emphasize is that the public's right to access personal information about the royals is inappropriate in any context, without exception. However, this becomes even more problematic when applied to stories involving Meghan, who despises such intense scrutiny. Here's where the concept of fairness should come into play, considering that she shouldn't undergo the scrutiny she herself detests imposing on others. Clearly, public opinion aligns with your viewpoint. However, claiming the moral high ground isn't truly feasible. Regardless of the situation, the public's curiosity is so invasive that it's akin to overly intruding into their personal lives. In this context, it's somewhat absurd to be surprised by news headlines when one of them makes a private racist comment. Do you believe that good people are perpetually devoid of racism? Do you think neither you, your family, nor your friends ever utter anything racially insensitive? Or do you think the standards are different solely for public figures, even within private conversations? I'm stating this even as I empathize with Meghan on the whole. She was mistreated, and it's evident that both the public and the royal family exhibited deep-seated racism in their responses, essentially expecting the royal family to adhere to higher standards than the general public, particularly in private matters, is preposterous. They are human, not virtuous defenders of justice. Thus, Meghan is entitled to voice her grievances, to express that she didn't feel embraced, was never given an opportunity, etc. Subsequently, the public has the right to engage in discourse. This seems to encapsulate her general stance. Note, I don't closely follow this story. However, Meghan's complaints stem from her position as a private citizen addressing her family, which necessitates some level of sensitivity to avoid irreparable damage. Presumably, she wants her son Archie to maintain connections. Reducing this to merely a matter of public interest overlooks Meghan's standpoint and fails to support her, at least from my perspective. This isn't a lawsuit. Notions of fairness become secondary, with empathy taking precedence. Another individual contributed, stating, "In reality, when any prominent individual participates in an interview to address the rumors that have arisen, they typically consult numerous legal and public relations experts who guide them on the extent of their permissible statements. This was evident during the period when Game of Thrones was airing, as actors were instructed to steer clear of certain subjects during interviews and to answer cautiously. It remains highly plausible that if Meghan and Harry were to divulge specific names, they might breach an agreement that has been implemented to safeguard their interests. Consider their legal actions against tabloids, among other things. Alternatively, such an action might relate to their ability to retain their titles. This isn't necessarily a form of censorship, but rather an aspect of the arrangement they made upon their departure. Remember, Meghan highlighted how the palace exercised control over her, even having her passport in their possession. She was essentially tied to the palace, unable to leave, meet friends, or undertake any activities without supervision. Given such circumstances, I can understand why they might willingly relinquish their right to disclose names as part of their exit strategy. In fact, your observation uncovers something even more intriguing: the significance of what they omit from their statements. The silence speaks volumes about their experiences. Buckingham Palace can exert immense control and suppress anyone who dares to expose its oppressive nature. I genuinely empathize with their situation. I happened to reside in the UK while Meghan faced misogyny, racism, and absurd conjectures about her motivations for marrying Harry. Being an American residing in England at that time, I was perturbed by the inadequate understanding that many British people seemed to possess about Americans, women, and even affluent American women. What is your opinion on Meghan accusing the royal family of racism without giving concrete evidence? Let us know your thoughts below in the comments section. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this newsletter. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.